This program comes to you by electrical transcription. The Treasury Star Parade. With Frederick March, Florence Eldridge, William Hargrave, Al Goodman and his orchestra and chorus, and Walter Houston as master of ceremonies. Our slogan, Millions for Defense.
Any bonds today, bonds of freedom is what we're selling. Any bonds today.
This is Walter Houston, ladies and gentlemen, in another of the new series of programs brought to you by the Treasury Department. And now may I present my very good friend, a star of stage, screen, radio, and television, Mr. Frederick March.
Thank you, Walter. Thank you. Of course, you forgot to mention bus depots and vaudeville.
Don't speak too disparagingly of the last, Frederick. You know, vaudeville is in my blood.
Oh, so that's where it went. Yeah, I'm only kidding, Walter. I'm only kidding. I'll never forget the thrill I used to get when the orchestra blared out that typical vaudeville introduction in Paducah, and two devastating figures came out with straw hats and canes, you know.
We're a couple of entertaining boys. We will fill you full of laughter and joy. We both wear snappy clothes, as everybody knows. We laugh and sing and everything. We're always stopping shows. Hey! We're a crowd that right here is our home. We're the same, no matter where we roam. Folks call us Walt and Fred.
And we both knock 'em dead.
Because we're just a couple of entertaining. Just a couple of entertaining. Just a couple of entertaining
boys.
Speaking of entertainment. Speaking of entertainment, Freddie, the theater almost got pinched last night because a girl dressed up in nothing but gold paint for a novelty.
Really? Well, what happened, Walter?
The novelty wore off.
Oh, well, you tighten up your shoelaces. Your tongue is hanging out.
Oh, that's a good one. Now, speaking of horses, why is a horse like a peppermint stick?
I don't know, Walter. Why is a horse like a peppermint stick?
The more you lick it, the faster it goes.
You tell him, Goldfish. You've been around the globe.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, now my partner will sing a little song entitled, Mother, You've Worked for Me Long Enough. Now go out and work for yourself.
No, Walter, no. I'd rather sing the new parachute song.
New parachute song?
Yeah. It don't mean a thing if you don't pull that string.
Recitation, Freddie, recitation.
Mary, Mary, you must get up. Mother, I'm not able. But Mary, Mary, you've got to get up. We need the sheets for the table.
Well, I passed your house last night. Yes, I passed your house last night.
Thank you, Walter. Thank you.
You rascal, yes. I saw you hugging and kissing your wife for 10 minutes. You should keep the shades down.
Oh, the joke's on you, Walter. I wasn't home last night.
Chatter, 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 ching, ching, ching. Chatter,
Chatter.
chatter, chatter, ching, ching, ching. Do you file your nails? I heard someone say.
No, I cut 'em off and I throw 'em away. Oh,
Chatter, 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 ching, ching, ching.
and we're not kidding.
Chatter, chatter, ching, ching, ching. Are we from hunger?
Jada, jada, ching, ching, ching.
Could we use
cancer? Jada, jada, ching, 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 ching.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, Meredith Wilson's Calling America, sung by William Hargrave with Al Goodman's orchestra and chorus.
America's calling to you. Father of waters, let your sons and daughters echo the cry. Thank God for freedom. Great silent fantasy. Take your stand for the red, white, and blue. Red, white, and blue. North to the boundary and coast to coast. Your America's calling to you. Oh, say, have you seen your America? Have you seen the Spanish shore? Oh, say, have you seen America from the plains of Idaho down to Mexico. Have you seen the fields of Iowa? Have you crossed the great divide? Have you seen all the glories of Washington? Have you seen the giant redwoods that are California's pride? Oh, say, have you seen your America from the hills of Tennessee? Oh, say, have you seen America from the San Francisco Bay to the Great White Way? Have you seen the Dakota's prairie land and the Lone Star Valley? Have you seen the George and the Delaware? Have you seen a certain statue with its giant torch aglow? You sons of America, take your stand for the red, white, and blue. North to the boundary and coast to coast, your America's calling.
Freddie, today I'd like to talk to you about the American woman. Do you remember the ancient Greek drama of Euripides, the Trojan woman?
I think so.
Remember the lines in which the mother Hecuba says,
For tears are a music too, and keep a song unheard in hearts that weep.
That's it. That's it exactly. In the hearts of the women of America today, there's a song so beautiful and deep and clear that nothing can alter the melody or change the triumphant ending. I read something the other day about a woman who is part of that magnificent story. A story by Isabel Currier. I believe it was published in the Reader's Digest. Did you read it?
I don't believe I did.
Well, it's so perfectly the story of all women of America that I'd like to tell you about it. It's quite a simple story. This woman lived in a small town, a typical American small town. She had 4 children, and the oldest son had been fighting at the front. She was a widow, and she had brought them up alone, unassisted, in spite of tremendous financial handicaps. And then one day, into the local telegraph office came a wire.
We regret to inform you that your son was killed in action.
Gee, that's tough. That's going to be tough on her. He was her oldest kid.
I wonder how she'll take it.
Who's going to tell her?
I guess we'll have to. God only knows I wish we didn't. But it's our job. I guess we'll have to.
Yes, they didn't want to tell her. They'd have given almost anything in the world not to have told her. But it was a job that had to be done, and they had to do it. They started out for her house. It was only a matter of 6 blocks or so, but bad news travels fast, and by the time they reached the house, they were surrounded by neighbors collected en route to help soften the blow. They walked quietly down the neat gravel path. There must have been 10 or 12 of them by now, slowly climbed the wooden steps, and for a long, sad moment stood on the porch, waiting for someone to make the first move. Then, when they couldn't stand the aching silence any longer, the telegrapher took another long look at the envelope in his hand, stepped forward quickly and knocked the door. And then they heard her kindly voice from within.
Come in.
They opened the door and went in. She was on her hands and knees on the floor, a pail and a mop by her side, a scrubbing brush in her hand. She straightened her tired back and raised her head and looked at them.
Yes.
Yes, she said. But there was no answer. They just stood there looking at her in their dumb misery. Yes, she repeated.
Yes. What is it?
And then it was the telegraph boy blurted out the bad news.
We got a telegram for you, ma'am.
He held out the yellow slip of paper. Slowly she wiped her hands upon her apron. And for a little breath, well, there was a darkening in her eyes, like as if someone had turned out the light before a mirror. Then she took the telegram. The room was filled with a kind of strangled silence. That was the sob of a neighbor. Regret to inform you, was killed in action. She crumpled the paper quietly, put it in her apron pocket. Nobody said anything. There was nothing for anybody to say. She looked at them for a long moment, then bent her head and reached for the scrubbing brush and dipped it into the water and started once again to scrub the worn linoleum floor. She said nothing, but they who were looking at her bent head saw the slow tears drop in little fresh pools into the muddy water. And with the next swish of the brush, they were gone. There were not many tears, just a few. And when the last patch was scrubbed, she took a dry cloth and wiped up the suds and tears, then rose and put the brush aside, emptied the pail, and arched her weary, aching back and said,
If you'll all find chairs in the sitting room, I'll make some tea.
Oh, no, please. You've got enough on your mind. Isn't there something we could do?
Well, I guess there's nothing that any of us can do to change what's happened. But there's a lot we can do to change what's going to happen.
Honestly, ma'am, I don't know how you do it. How you keep going's a mystery.
Oh, no. When I have a lot on my mind, I like to find the next thing I can do with my hands and do it. Thinking about my troubles never changed them a bit. But doing anything that needs to be done seems to make them straighten out by themselves. If I thought too much about this, I might get to feeling so sorry for myself I couldn't do any work. And that wouldn't be fair to my boy and to others like him. Well, I'm sorry there isn't much in the house, but I can offer you some tea, and I just baked a batch of cookies.
Story of one American woman. Some of us might think that this woman is unique. But some friends of mine just received news the other day that their oldest son was killed in the first air raid on Honolulu. I called on them to express my sympathies. But when I got there, I found that the boy's mother was busy at the Red Cross, that his father was in an air raid warden's meeting. They were doing the next thing. And by doing it, they were transforming life from tragedy into victory. Neither disaster nor confusion nor loss can keep the valiant from their appointed tasks. The unconquerable American spirit has no time to beat its breast in despair over what has happened. It does the next thing, whatever it may be. Today, the very existence of the American way of life is being threatened. We must defend it as each of us best can. There are many different things that can be done. But there is one thing we all must do, a vitally important thing. Buy defense bonds and stamps. Budget a part of your income every week. Join the Treasury's payroll savings plan wherever you work. And remember, when we buy defense bonds and stamps, we are saving Americans. It's our country. Let's keep it ours.
The United States Treasury Department thanks the distinguished artists who gave their talents to this performance. Walter Houston, who acted as our master of ceremonies, Frederick March, Florence Eldridge, and William Hargrave. Orchestra and chorus were under the direction of Al Goodman. Writing by Hal Block, John Matouche, and Malcolm Meacham. Production by William A. Beecher. This is Larry Elliott speaking.